to full prosperity. We're going to go full prosperity and to build the greatest economy the world has ever seen, just as we had just a short time ago. We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America healthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Great again. Great again.
Hey guys, welcome to the American Tribune Live. I am Todd Peterson, and folks, if you missed it last night, we have a full show dedicated to Joe Biden's just atrocious farewell address. He leaves office the exact same way he came in, lying to you, gaslighting you, hating this country, and to top it all off, he is as senile as ever. For 4 years, the media told us Joe Biden was fine. Tomorrow on my podcast, Freedom from the Press with Jason Robertson, over on our main channel, the American Tribune, that's on Rumble again, the American Tribune. We're going to cover some of the responses and the admissions that we kind of knew Joe was not doing that great the whole time. We've got more of those comments coming out. They're admitting everything. He wasn't all there. He had business dealings with China. He knew Hunter Biden's associates. All of that they lied to you about for 4 years. It's finally coming to an end. But this speech, folks, we had to cover clips of the speech today. Big story yesterday, but I needed to show everyone. I needed everyone to listen to just how Joe Biden wants you to remember his presidency, how he wants to take credit for Trump's victories, how he can't even read the teleprompter. It's all there. It is classic Biden. I mean, yes, this summarizes Biden's presidency, but not the way they intended. It captures everything wrong with him. And as one of our clips said, it highlights his vicious senility. Joe Biden is not there. Joe Biden hates you. And we've got it all covered for the show today. Before we do that, I did want to jump into an AOC clip. So we're going to start with that, just a random AOC clip, because she wants to make sure that trans women are real women. Just an absurd moment, not related at all to the show, but I found this worth commenting on. But again, folks, thanks for tuning in today. You've got lots of options when you look for commentary, look for analysis, look for news stories that are circulating. If you're tuning in to the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson, thank you for making us your show for the next half hour, 45 minutes. We never really have a schedule going into this. Some days I'm fired up. I'm particularly fired up today. I slept well. I'm caffeinated, got some nicotine. So we're ready to rock and roll, folks. And we are not streaming on Facebook. Whatever Mark Zuckerberg has promised, donating to the Trump inauguration fund, getting rid of his fact checkers, again, just shills for the regime. He got rid of fact checking. He says you can say things more freely. We did a test, or rather some other people did tests. You can say some pretty obscene language now over on Facebook and not get nuked for it. So that's promising. I don't know. I had a title of vicious senility. We're going to go after Joe Biden. We're going to make fun of him. Didn't want to take a chance on Facebook, just to remind you, and I'm only saying this to remind you folks, that big tech censorship is real. The fact that I am afraid to stream this podcast on Facebook tells you everything you need to know about the state of affairs. Yes, Donald Trump can make things better. Yes, Mark Zuckerberg can kiss the ring, but the threat is real. So we're not taking a chance today on Facebook. We're going to have a smaller audience because of it. We've gained a lot of our followers over on our Rumble channel, where we do stream live, because you can say the truth. You can say what your opinion really is over on Rumble. It's a free speech platform. So I encourage everyone to head over there. If you're listening on Spotify, if you're watching on our YouTube channel, because I threw this up on YouTube, small account over there. That's kind of my litmus test. What can I get away with saying? Because YouTube is probably worse than Facebook. But again, we don't monetize YouTube nearly as much, so I can take that chance. But big tech censorship is real. You can never say everything you want. So I'm not taking that chance today. I'm going to miss our Facebook audience. But if you are listening, watching on any other platform, head over to Rumble, the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. That is our growing channel. We got a nice little community over there. But let's dive into it, folks. Again, not related to the title. We'll do a quick AOC segment because this is what Dems are still saying. And then I'll have a few comments, and then we're going to dive in. We got, gosh, how many clips do we have of Joe Biden? And then I got some media reactions. You can see how the propagandists are covering his farewell address. And again, you're going to see it for yourself, and you're going to see how they respond, because of course they're shills, and of course they say what they do. Oh, best speech ever. And then we got some other responses as well. You'll get my responses, but jam-packed episode today, folks. Let's dive into our first clip.
Trans girls are girls. And for all the folks that are so concerned, thank you for your concern about women for the first time that I've seen. I don't know about y'all, I don't know who's been to gym class lately, but girls, even if you only believe in two genders, I've played co-ed sports all the time.
All right. I thought this was important. Number one, it highlights the fact that Democrats are not learning any lessons, and I've covered this before. They literally cannot learn because their worldview is their religion. Believing that trans people are, if I'm a trans woman, if I'm a mentally ill man and I have a fetish, I get off on wearing a dress or making you call me she, her. That is a religious view for them. If I want to have a wide open border and I'm going to get mad at Trump because he's going to build a wall and deport illegals, if he's going to stop foreign wars, like all of this is a religion of them. They sacrifice children on the altar to Moloch. They think you should be able to murder a baby post-abortion, post-birth. Like that's how far they've gone. They're not going to learn from their election loss when the American people were like, the media lies, you lie, your policies are evil, like literally evil in the case of murdering babies or allowing illegal immigrants to go ahead of American citizens and even legal immigrants with the visa scandal that got exposed last month, prioritizing non-Americans over Americans, murdering babies, supporting wars against civilians killed overseas day in and day out because you got to get your lobbyists paid, you got to fund the military-industrial complex. They support evil. But like I said, they're not going to learn from their election loss because they cannot learn. It would be no different than you trying to learn like, oh, Jesus Christ didn't die on the cross for my sins and he's the Son of God and all that. Like you're not going to unlearn that because that's your religion. Those are your foundational beliefs. You can't unlearn it. You believe that. Democrats are the same way when it comes to their evil policies. They're not going to learn from their election defeat because there's nothing to learn. They are going to double down. They're always going to believe this. And so you got AOC on the floor still saying, oh, trans women are women. It's just not going away. And that's good news for us because more and more Americans are just like, I can't support evil. Like, what are you talking about here? Trans women, if you want to wear a dress in your home, I don't care what fetishes you have. But in public, I'm not going to call you a pronoun. I'm not going to be forced to call you by the wrong pronoun. There is a truth. There are men and there are women. Like, look, and the narrative is shifting. This is the other point I wanted to say. The narrative is shifting. Now she has to say, like, well, we have co-ed sports. Men beating up on women in volleyball and wrestling, MMA. You're watching women's skulls get cracked open. You're watching their faces explode, suffering concussions and the effects of that for the rest of their lives. You're watching them take over spots belonging to women that have worked hard, accolades, all of it. Men are stealing from women, all of it. And then AOC wants to pretend like, oh, you support women now. But her narrative is shifting. Even they have to be like, that didn't work. Let's try this co-ed sports angle. I don't know about you folks. When I listen to the clip and it's like, yes, I played co-ed sports in gym class. Gym class was boys and girls. I played co-ed sport baseball. There was a girl on my team in 5th grade. No big deal. The difference is when you sign up for a co-ed sport, you know that you're playing with boys and girls. This is not a surprise. Yes, boys play against girls in co-ed sports because that's the literal definition of co-ed. What we are talking about is when you have Will Thomas swimming against other females, other women, stealing a roster spot, stealing accolades from them, stealing championships from them. When you have a man playing in a women's volleyball league and they can spike the ball so hard it smashes your face and you now are blacked out because of the impact, that is different than co-ed when you all willingly sign up to play with boys and girls. It's so insane that we have to clarify AOC's remarks. But again, I just wanted to play the clip to highlight the fact that they're even shifting. They don't even believe their lies, even though I pointed out it as a religion to them, even though they know they have to message it differently now to lie to the American people. Oh, it's no different than a co-ed sport. Oh, you're right. You're right. Men can pretend they're women, steal roster spots, steal accolades, hurt women, but it's just like co-ed sports. So that's where they're at nowadays. Again, they're not going to learn because they cannot learn. The next time you see a headline or someone says, Dems refuse to learn from their election loss, just know that that is incorrect. They can't learn from their election loss. They can't change their foundational beliefs. So I just had to say, AOC, again, she's always wrong about everything. And then she throws in the y'all, like, of course she does. It's this pandering. I don't know who this y'all is referring to. She is from the Bronx. She is Puerto Rican. They do not say y'all, but there she is. It's all fake. It's all pretend. They're all actors. But let's dive into it now. Let us get to Joe Biden's farewell address. I will summarize it all right now. It was awful. Joe Biden awful president. I will go on record saying the worst we have seen in this country's history. I don't think that's a stretch. I don't know who's going to disagree with that. Jimmy Carter got to live to be finally like, at least I'm not the worst president anymore. I think Jimmy Carter was at least a decent human being. I have nothing to say about that. I got a great Jesse Kelly clip to kind of talk about not talking about Jimmy Carter because I don't really care that he's gone. I don't care about his family members losing Jimmy Carter. Jimmy was 100 years old. People die. That stuff happens. But in terms of his presidential legacy, yeah, Carter was awful. In terms of being a good human being, I think so. I mean, they're all corrupt. They all know secrets. They all do horrible things as president. I get that. But if he had never been president, I think he would have lived, a noble life. If he had never gotten into politics, I think he was a good person. Joe Biden is simply a despicable human being. That is on full display in the speech. Awful president, even worse human being. Good riddance to Joe Biden, folks. All he can do is lie, steal from you. He is the face of politics, the corruption in politics. No one is going to miss him. No one should miss him. Even the Democrats wanted him out of there. That's why they had a coup last June. But let's get into it here. I got clips. We'll talk about the clips. We're going to move kind of fast through it here. And then we got media reactions. You got to see how the left is talking about us, these insane propagandists, these communists. And then we'll wrap things up. So here we go. We got some clips. Let's start with the very beginning.
Before I begin, let me speak to important news from earlier today. After 8 months of nonstop negotiation, my administration, a ceasefire and a hostage deal has been reached by Israel and Hamas, the elements of which I laid out in great detail in May of this year. This plan was developed and negotiated by my team and will be largely implemented by the incoming administration. That's why I told my team to keep the incoming administration fully informed, because that's how it should be, working together as Americans.
All right, so this is all a lie, folks. And number one, we have had a hostage crisis for 15 months. Joe Biden wants to celebrate 8 months, so great job there. You're telling me for the first 7 months you weren't trying to release American citizens from Hamas, who endure all sorts of atrocities while they're in their care, shall we say. So Joe Biden wants to celebrate. He starts this conference off with a bald-faced lie. Donald Trump on the campaign trail said Hamas had better release these dudes by January 20th, otherwise there will be hell to pay. Make no mistake, it was Donald Trump's victory that got this situation resolved. There were reports of a ceasefire. I think I saw this morning that Hamas is backtracking on the ceasefire. They can probably get away with that for 4 more days, and then Donald Trump will be sworn in, and then they're not going to mess around. The only reason this got done is because Donald Trump is coming into the White House. Joe Biden has had 15 months to secure a deal to get hostages out. How many months did it take to get Brittany Griner out of Russia? 1, 2? We can get it done. We are America. We have the strongest military, the strongest economy in the world. If we want something, we can do it. Joe Biden sat on his hands for 15 months. These American citizens have been held hostage by Hamas. Joe Biden did nothing. He did absolutely nothing. The reason we have a situation now that might be resolved, and it will be resolved in 4 days, not right now. Notice they're not coming home on a plane today. Donald Trump won. Donald Trump spoke tough on the campaign trail. He has continued to talk tough. And he is negotiating as well behind the scenes. Release these people, stop the conflict. Otherwise, there will be hell to pay. Hamas, Gaza will be turned into rubble. But Joe Biden wants to take credit for it because, he's the president right now. And this situation, this deal got reached. That is false. It is Donald Trump's doing. The situation is where it is today. But Joe Biden, on his way out, says, look at this. Look at my presidency marked by a resolution with the hostage situation. He has had 15 months. And he wants to pretend that for 8 months of tough negotiating, now we got a deal done. Isn't it weird, folks, that 8 months of negotiating, it only got figured out with 4 days left to go in his administration? So this is a lie. This is a lie. The other big lie here at the very end, Joe Biden says, I'm informing Donald Trump of everything. We're going to let him know about everything. That is a lie. And when he says he wants to make sure that Donald Trump knows so we can find agreement and we can come together as Americans, Joe Biden has made sure, all Democrats have made sure that for 4 years you are divided. You're divided by race. You're divided. We just had the AOC clip. You're divided by heteronormativity and trans people's rights to exist, not denying their existence, because if you say that transgenderism is insane, they want you to think we're talking about the individuals. Nope, we are talking about the ideology. Joe Biden doesn't want to bring the country together. He could have brought the country together when he launched his campaign in 2019 on the Fine People hoax. Instead, he had to draw a line right in the sand. You either are for the good people of America or you're a neo-Nazi white supremacist that supports Donald Trump. He could have divided this country over. He divided the country over COVID. If you're unvaccinated, you're a threat to everybody. You're going to suffer severe winter of death and illness. Joe Biden has been nothing but divisive. And I keep saying this because it's important. He could have pardoned all of the people involved in January 6th. Instead, they are rotting in D.C. jail cells until the very last second before Donald Trump pardons them. Joe Biden knows they're getting pardoned. He knows they're there for illegitimate reasons. They were only pawns for the regime to craft a narrative around Donald Trump, but he lets them sit in prisons. Donald Trump's going to release them on day one. He could have done the right thing and let them out and healed the country and admitted all of J6 was a Fedsurrection, but he didn't. But now he wants you to think that he represents all Americans. He wants everyone to come together. Never mind the fact that he called you a domestic terrorist, the single greatest domestic terror threat if you supported MAGA and Donald Trump. That wasn't that long ago he did that either. But now he's going to be the uniter, Mr. Unity. So it's all a lie. I mean, how many lies did we get in a 20-second clip? But this summarizes the entire speech. All right, clip number 2.
Eternal thanks to you, the American people. After 50 years of public service, I give you my word. I still believe in the idea for which this nation stands. A nation where the strength of our institutions and the character of our people matter and must endure. Now it's your turn to stand guard. May you all be the keeper of the flame. May you keep the faith. I love America. You love it too. God bless you all. And may God protect our troops. Thank you for this great honor.
All right, then we got the nice staring as the camera rolls. Joe Biden doesn't know what to do. All this is false. I am confidently saying that Joe Biden hates this country and he hates you. And the proof of that is his policies over the last 4 years. If you love this country or say that you love this country, then you would be the most ardent defender of the Constitution. It is just a piece of paper. It is parchment. The country is not, it is governed. It was built upon these ideas. But if you love this country, you would support and uphold those ideas. Democrats at every turn, helmed by Joe Biden as president, have done everything they can to undermine the Constitution. We saw that when Twitter files were exposed, when Missouri v. Biden came out and it said, yep, the government colluded with big tech to censor your right to speech. Democrats have been campaigning for how many decades on stealing your weapons? They want to disarm you. That would violate the Second Amendment. They want to usurp the 10th Amendment. I would argue one of the most important amendments in the Constitution itself, where states have the right, because again, folks, we are a constitutional republic of 50 republics. He doesn't want states to have any rights. He wants the federal government to assume all power. He has violated the Constitution at every turn. He wants to insert some idea that because all people are equal under the law, that now if you're a white male, you shouldn't get hired for a job. You shouldn't be allowed to go to college ahead of some people that are less qualified than you. DEI, equity, all of this is antithetical to the notion of the Constitution. Equal rights under the law, equal opportunities. Joe Biden and Democrats hate all of that. They hate you. They hate the Constitution. If they loved this country, they would govern it as it was dictated, as it was written in the Constitution. So this is, again, just a gigantic lie. Joe Biden doesn't love this country. He loves the opportunities afforded to him during 50 years in Washington, D.C. He has become a multi-millionaire. His son has evaded gun charges, tax charges. He has used his name to get on Burisma, to meet with Chinese businessmen. None of this happens without Joe Biden in politics. He has used it only to benefit himself. If he says he loves this country, he simply means that the institutions he was allowed to serve in enabled him to make more money than he ever deserved, than any human being deserves. Never earned a penny. For over 50 years, Joe Biden's salary and all the millions he made because of it came at your expense, the taxpayer. And how has America gotten better in 50 years because Joe Biden served as a senator or as a vice president or as a president? The answer is not at all. Had Joe Biden never existed, this country would be better off. And yes, someone else would have taken his place and been exactly the same in terms of corruption and ineptitude and incompetence. But the fact remains, Joe Biden did serve, and you cannot point to a single thing that America is better for because of it. So good riddance, again, to Joe. I think I'll say that after every clip. Good riddance to Joe Biden.
to enact an 18-year time limit, time and term, for the strongest ethics reforms for our Supreme Court. We need to ban members of Congress from trading stock while they're in the Congress.
All right, so there's a little classic Joe there. He can't read the teleprompter. He's stuttering. The Congress, I've never heard it referred to that way. Joe Biden he is not there. I am going to say this again, folks. I can't believe he lasted 4 years. Let me know in the comments. I was on record. I took bets saying that there's no way Joe Biden finishes 4 terms. You could see in 2019 he wasn't ready to do this. He wasn't all there. But he was the man the regime needed because he could be presented as a moderate, just a regular guy. I'm from Scranton. Look at my upbringing, my humble upbringings. This is me always adjusting because I have bad backs. But where have you been for the last 4 years? Yeah, term limits on the Supreme Court, not going to happen. Again, if you love this country, that's in the Constitution, no term limits for the Supreme Court. They are above politics. We're not going to try to replace members of the Supreme Court every 18 years willy-nilly because I think we can get Democrats in power again and someone's term is up. Not how it's written, but where have you been for 4 years on banning congressional stock trading, Joe Biden? You have said nothing on the matter. Your cronies have benefited immensely from trading on insider information, legally, by the way, because it's not illegal for these Congress members to get information ahead of you, the retail investor, and then make enormous sums of money off of it. As Dan Crenshaw said, our salary is not enough. $180,000 isn't enough to pay for our home and feed our family. So you know what? It's kind of one of those benefits of the job where I just have access to insider trading to make millions of dollars because I don't get paid enough as a congressman. Joe Biden could have said this on day one. He could have campaigned on this in 2019. When I'm in office, I will ban congressional stock trading. And all you have to do is say you're not allowed to hold funds. Put it in a blind trust. Sell all your individual stocks and maybe invest in the market and let it sit there and you're not allowed to touch it. He could have campaigned on this and he could have done it. And now he wants to talk about it with 4 days left to go. Shove off, Joe Biden. Absolutely shove off. This is all meaningless. Yeah, it resonates with the American people because we want this, but he could have done this a long time ago. All right, next clip.
Farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the dangers of the military-industrial complex. He warned us then about, and I quote, the potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power, end of quote.
Yes, you are so much like Dwight D. Eisenhower, perhaps the last honest man in politics. I have not dove into Eisenhower's presidency. Again, let me know in the comments below if there's some stuff I should know. But yeah, his farewell address was spot on, warning us about the military-industrial complex, the deep state. It's been there since post-World War II at the very least. Eisenhower knew it. That's why they killed Kennedy. And now Joe Biden wants to equate that to big tech. And the difference is Joe Biden loved weaponizing the government against you. He loved weaponizing the MIC, big tech against you, silencing you, deplatforming you, shutting you down to make sure that there weren't other known options, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine. If these solutions existed, we couldn't have gotten the vaccine through because of the EUA's stipulations. If there's another measure that's already effective, you can't get emergency use authorization to push this vaccine on everyone. Joe Biden mandated the vaccine. He loves government collusion. What he's actually saying, without saying it explicitly, is he's afraid that you're allowed to speak freely on X for the most part, on Rumble. Facebook is opening up. He is afraid of opening up big tech. That's the difference. Whereas Eisenhower saw the real threat of the MIC, and how true is that? How prescient was he at the time? Joe Biden is taking the opposite approach. He wanted big tech to do the bidding of the government. There was a clip of Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, it was Zuckerberg sat down with Joe Rogan earlier this week, and he basically admitted, yeah, I had all these different 3-letter agencies come to me and say, you had better shut down these opposing narratives. If someone says ivermectin, ban them. If someone says hydroxychloroquine and vitamin D and zinc work, ban them. We can't have any of these other narratives floating around. That was Joe Biden's doing. His government, his 3-letter agencies went to big tech and shut them down. He violated your right to free speech, but because he was hiding behind big tech companies, suddenly we're allowed to do that. No, Joe Biden is not worried about the big tech industrial complex in the way that he wants you to think it is. He is simply afraid that you're going to have more access to free speech, real news. And again, Donald Trump doesn't win the election without X being bought by Elon Musk. That is what they are afraid of. All right, next clip.
Deeply concerned about the potential rise of a tech industrial complex.
Well, I think that's the same clip. All right, we don't need to listen to that again. Next clip.
So much is at stake. Right now, the existential threat of climate change has never been clearer. Just look across the country. from California to North Carolina. That's why I signed the most significant climate and clean energy law ever in the history of the world.
All right. And again, he's going to tout that, celebrate it. He's going to burnish his resume. Look what I accomplished. The most effective, wide-reaching, far-spread climate change legislation. Of course, it's not the way that he wants it to mean, because that is the worst thing you could do. He's going to point to a hurricane and then a man-made disaster in California. Yes, man-made. I have said this every video, every day, every podcast since the fires broke out. If they didn't care about the stupid little delta smelt, if they didn't care about dead trees standing there, if they would have cleared brush, didn't control burns, if they had access to water, if they'd actually used the aquifers as intended, like filled up aquifers instead of having them sit there barren, this fire wouldn't be devastating. It would be done by now. Democrat policies, not man-made climate change, are the reason for these fires in California. Now, hurricanes getting into North Carolina, bizarre, doesn't normally happen, but it did. But they have no proof that climate change caused that. And you know what? Man-made climate change is the largest myth promulgated by Democrats. It is larger than COVID. COVID was a test run to get you to abide by, and not even abide by, because you wouldn't have a choice, their climate change tyranny. Make no mistake, they would have locked you down for climate change if Kamala Harris had won, banned gas-powered vehicles like they did in California. And there was a crazy story circulating that California banned it. Check it up for yourself, folks. They banned gas-powered pumps. So someone in California was just like, well, the government's not helping me. Maybe I'll get a pump because I have a pond, I have a pool, there's a lake nearby. Maybe I'll just buy my own gas-powered pump in California, and then I can pump out the water to douse the flames that are threatening my house. They banned that. So they don't care that your house burns down. There was a story in Australia a couple years ago when Australia was dealing with their massive wildfires. A guy cut down trees near his home so the house wouldn't burn down, because again, you clear away the trees, give a little separation from the fire in your house. He went to jail for that. These trees would have burned anyways, but he went to jail for cutting down a tree. And you know what? His house was saved, but now he's in jail. They don't believe, they do believe their lie. I take it back. I think they believe this lie because they are that insane, that corrupt. But the climate change bill, it is disastrous. Donald Trump needs to overturn all of it. We are not responsible for the climate. The climate changes itself. I am not going to go on my climate change rant right now because we've got too many videos to cover, too many reactions to this speech. But he had to insert it, and people believe it. I have my own family member that when it's a silly thread, but no doubt you've got them too, these group chats, talking about the wildfires, because nothing is more enlightening than some normie group chat opining about the root cause of the fires. But they said it in there, just like Joe Biden. People believe this. Oh, climate change is getting really bad. That's why we have the fires. No, not having access to water, not cutting down dead trees, not clearing brush, not doing controlled burns. And again, the irony, I got to point this out again, folks, they do it in the name of protecting the environment. And do you know what happens in these wildfire situations? They burn down anyways, and then they burn down more of the environment. Your homes, they emit more CO2 in the environment. If they cared about climate change, and they love pointing out that CO2 drives climate change, wouldn't you want to enact policies that limit the amount of CO2 that goes in the atmosphere? If you love the environment, wouldn't you control burn a small section of it so that it can't spread to larger swaths? It's all backside down. Like, if you think about their policies for a second, they didn't do that in the name of protecting the environment. And then that stuff burns down anyways, and it takes more with it. And along the way, more CO2 gets pumped into the atmosphere. So even if you play by their rules and you're like, yep, CO2 is bad. Yep, burning forests is bad. But it seems like now more CO2 is in the atmosphere and more forests have burned down than otherwise would have if we just did a smaller controlled burn in the first place. Like, even if you play their stupid game, accept their premise, you can still point out how they're wrong. Absolutely insane stuff all around, but he got it in there, and people believe this. People think climate change caused these fires when it was obviously horrible mismanagement at the helm of Democrat leadership. But there you go. There are some highlights from the Joe Biden farewell address. It was all like that. I think we had an end of line. Let me pull this up one more time, because this was, this is, here we go. Let's play the clip and we'll talk about it.
Farewell address, President Eisenhower spoke of the danger of, quote,
there we go,
of misplaced power, end of quote.
End of quote.
Notice,
I forget how many times Joe Biden has done this, but again, the teleprompter is undefeated against Joe Biden. He says the quote, and then he reads end of quote. Yes, this captures it right here. I think this image is also our thumbnail almost. End of quote. This man cannot leave office soon enough. Joe Biden's policies, his entire administration, have been utterly ruinous for this country. But as I said after the election, there's kind of a silver lining to this, and let me lay this out. Donald Trump won the 2020 election. It was stolen from him. There is no other way around it. The election got stolen. Where did the tens of millions of votes for Joe Biden in 2020 go to Kamala Harris in 2024? This was the most consequential election of our lifetime, and less people voted. I'm not buying it. Again, you can break down the numbers. Trump won every county, every swing state of importance, and somehow Joe Biden still won. It just didn't happen. And then you add on to the fact, the way that J.D. Vance talks about it is the utter collusion between media, government to spread hoax after hoax after hoax. 51 intel officers signed off that the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation. Simply pointing out the lies, the straight up lies from the media is enough to confirm a stolen election because it was so dishonest that it was stolen. People believed the lies that they were getting told, so they voted accordingly. That was stolen. Add on to the fraudulent votes, the ballots, the no voter ID. Kamala Harris won every state that only had no voter ID law. And then Donald Trump won all the states that had the voter ID law. So make of that what you will. So the 2020 election was stolen. We know this. But had Donald Trump won the presidency in 2020, he comes back with Mike Pence as his vice president. He comes back with a Democrat-controlled Senate. And he comes back just kind of continuing status quo. He's got the same swamp rats in his administration. He's kind of got the same thing going for him where he's battling the media. He's battling hoaxes. He's fighting with his own rhinos in the Republican Party. So nothing really gets done. I don't think Trump is successful in his second term because what's going to happen? Lame duck, Mike Pence is vice president, kind of the same thing we saw. The media is going to do its thing. But because Joe Biden was handed the White House illegitimately, Donald Trump steps back. He reflects on that time. And then in those next 4 years, we see the media get exposed. We see Elon Musk buy Twitter. We see all the lawfare against Donald Trump. And Donald Trump is hardened. They tried to kill him. And now he steps into the White House knowing that they hate him, knowing they want him dead. The American public woke up enough to say, I don't believe the media anymore. Like, we are in such a different position because of Donald Trump's loss, because of all the exposure of media lies, politician lies. None of this happens if Donald Trump wins. Again, he just kind of slides into the White House again. Same thing is happening. But now we have J.D. Vance. Now we have Elon Musk. Now we have RFK. Now we have Tulsi Gabbard. Now we have more and more disillusioned former Democrat voters. This is going to be a wildly successful administration because it has the backing of the American people. We hit a boiling point. We hit our tipping point, and we said, we don't want to live like this anymore. So Donald Trump, with his hiatus, is going to come back, and America's going to be better than ever. So yes, there is a silver lining to them stealing the election, much the same way that there's a silver lining to I'll just say the Fine People hoax. Pick any hoax. Bloodbath, assassinate Liz Cheney. How many hoaxes do they run? Go to theamericandebunk.com. You can find all the hoaxes there. But as this ages, and you're like, well, I saw the full clip, like an additional 5 seconds, and Donald Trump says, I'm not talking about neo-Nazis and fine people. A lot of folks, just normie folks that, again, they work, they raise families, they take care of their house, they're hanging out with friends, they might be watching their sports ball. These people didn't take the time to dive into it. So they're like, oh, the media ran this clip. Like, that would be true. Why would it be a lie? And so as that clip ages, more and more people are just like, yeah, the media lies to me. And if they lied about that, and it was such an obvious lie, clearly Bloodbath, he was talking about the economy, not violence in the street if he loses. Then they have to ask the question, what else are they lying about? Like, all of this has now led to the moment where we are, where the American people, Donald Trump is the executive, he's going to act on our interests. We want a secure border. We don't trust the media anymore. We want to end these wars overseas. How come CNN's never been in Ukraine? How are we not getting any honest reporting out of Ukraine? We all see right through the sham that it is, through the propaganda that it is. So yes, there is a huge silver lining to the election being stolen in 2020. As Donald Trump comes back into office, great things are going to happen, things that otherwise would not have been done in a lame duck second term back to back. All right. So we did AOC, we did Joe Biden. Let's take a look at how people are covering, responding to last night's clip. We're just clearing out the library here so we can get some new clips up here. I'm going to start with Jesse Kelly. This is kind of my idea too. Just take a listen and we'll talk about it.
I know we have the Biden farewell address, but there's something about me that I don't know that it's a good thing. I don't know that it's a bad thing. I'm just going to explain something about me and how I work. You haven't seen us do a lot of death tributes on this show, meaning when a famous person of some kind dies, a politician, we just lost Jimmy Carter recently, or a musician or things like that, you don't generally see us do a lot of, oh, it's a sad, sad day. Oh, pray for Jimmy Carter's family. And I'm going to explain why. I don't care. And especially if it's somebody I generally disliked, as it is Jimmy Carter, out of respect, I choose not to say anything at all. I don't dance on the grave. I don't celebrate the loss, but I also don't pretend like I'm heartbroken over the whole thing. I just kind of move along. And I feel the same way about these politicians, these statesmen who have been lifelong scumbags, and they're giving farewell addresses. We're supposed to all be what? Despondent that Joe Biden's decades-long career of vindictiveness and corruption is coming to an end. Oh, Joe, please don't go. You were the best. No, he wasn't the best. So I'm not talking about it. He was a piece of crap, a vicious, nasty piece of crap his entire career. At the end of his career, he was a senile, vicious, nasty piece of crap who was too old, power-hungry, and weak to actually take back any power in the White House. Of course, he wanted to be president. That's where the power-hungry comes in, but he couldn't function. So he got into office, and for 4 years, we've had the most nasty communists running the United States of America. His regime was banana republic-like in its censorship, its attacks of American citizens. I'm old enough to remember when that old jerk told us he was losing patience with us because we weren't getting vaccinated fast enough. So goodbye, Joe. Allow me to be the first to say farewell.
There you go, folks. That is the only response in this farewell address. We covered it so you could hear it, so you could see the lies one more time, the hoaxes, again, taking credit for Trump's victories. Good riddance to Joe. He has been corrupt his entire life. I posed the question earlier, what can you point to in 50 years, 5 decades, over 5 decades of public service? You have not benefited one iota with Joe Biden in any role as, and I love the mockery there of a statesman. But yeah, remember when they said Donald Trump's not befitting of the White House? Joe Biden for 50 years has just been a garbage human being. That is Joe Biden's legacy, not even referring to his political helmsmanship. He is a garbage human being. Good riddance, Joe. Honestly, I cannot believe he served out his entire 4 years. Maybe it's best he did. We would have Kamala Harris, and really nothing would have changed. I know impeach Joe Biden. The House should have impeached Joe Biden just to send a message, just to show voters like, hey, they actually care about these issues. I understand it would have led to Kamala Harris. I understand the rest of the administration wouldn't be going anywhere. Good riddance to Joe. Nobody will miss you one bit. All right, so let's get to how we got Don Lemon here. We'll start with Don Lemon. We got a few other people, CIA assets and corporate leftist media saying it was the best thing ever. What a speech. It was so historic. So you got to see how they're covering it. And then we'll wrap things up. I got my own commentary on it as well, a little bit more. We got Scott Jennings from CNN, who is spot on. Got Jesse Waters talking about it as well. Much more accurate than these fools. But again, just for laughs, just to understand that some of your family members, some of your friends, they are ingesting this, they're watching this, and then they're getting brainwashed and propaganda. This is the chip that's getting implanted today. Hey, you need to think that Joe Biden's farewell address was really great. So let's take a listen to some of those.
Well, this is what I say. According to diplomats who were involved firsthand in the negotiation, President Biden refused to put any pressure on Netanyahu. And ultimately, they gave up that any deal would happen. It was, and Don, you and I talked about President Trump. I have no love, and I don't want to give Trump any credits, but I know but I am in the business of telling the truth.
Same.
Donald Trump intervention.
Just have to point out, Don Lemon still thinks he's in the business of telling the truth. I always wonder, Don Lemon, Mr. Irrelevant now, lost his CNN gig, lost his X gig because he melted down talking to Elon Musk in his very first interview. And I just have to point out, the production quality of Don Lemon's show is on par with mine, and I am just some random dude in Minnesota who bought a $60 camera, a $50 microphone, and you can see the light glaring off my TV screens in the back here. So my production quality is not good. That is to be expected. But Don Lemon, I mean, look at his background. He doesn't take this seriously. And also, does anyone watch the Don Lemon show? I think I get more viewers than Don Lemon at this point. But here's some gal. She hates Donald Trump, but even she is like, I think Donald Trump gets credit for this because Joe Biden gave up.
And have been monumental in making the ceasefire deal possible. And just to make people understand, President Biden not only refused on multiple occasions to put any pressure on the Prime Minister of Israel to do any deal, people who were involved in the negotiation, including Israeli negotiators, told me firsthand that very often they felt that he was more than backing the negotiating team, the Israeli negotiating team. He was backing the Prime Minister agenda and his desire to stay in office. The Israeli media and Israeli ministers, including Ben-Gvir, today confirmed that it was President Trump. Israeli media also confirmed that Netanyahu was already gave up on the hostages. He was willing to sacrifice the hostages for his political desire to stay in power. However, Donald Trump happened to be a transactional president, happened to be a transactional man. He wanted to come to the White House.
I don't know who this gal is, but I give her a lot of credit. She admitted her own bias. She says, I don't care for Donald Trump. I don't like this guy. She doesn't sound like an American citizen, so I doubt she would have voted anyways, but she no doubt would have voted for a Kamala Harris. But she is being honest. She is more honest than anyone else in the media. And just wait for it, folks, because here is Don Lemon about to melt down over the obvious answer to this. Why do we have a settlement with the hostages? Why did we come to a deal with Hamas? Because of Donald Trump. That is not debatable, but Don Lemon will find a reason to melt down over it because of course he will. He suffers from TDS.
House with a win. And that was always his approach.
Let me ask you this then. So why did they not wait until he took office, which is just going to be in about a week?
Because he didn't want to deal with these issues as he get into office. He wanted this issue to be off the table.
Roll up. Okay. I don't agree with that. I think Donald Trump would like to have started off. We know Donald Trump, the day of his inauguration or on the day to announce a ceasefire. The fact that it happened on Biden's watch, I think that leads many people to question whether it was. And look, I'm not saying that you're wrong, but that's going to lead many people to question.
Do you know when the ceasefire will enter in? Do you know when the ceasefire will start?
It's going to start. Well, the temporary ceasefire is going to start. It should start on Sunday, correct?
It will start on the 19th.
You mean the permanent?
No.
And of course, Don Lemon, ignorant at best. He has no idea about the terms of this to begin with. All he knows is he sees Joe Biden in the White House and this ceasefire getting negotiated right now. So, Joe Biden gets credit. He's president. Don't even think about it. Do you know when it actually starts? And Don Lemon has no idea. He's not in the business of knowing. He's in the business of propaganda and just being a stupid clown. Gets called out on his own show. Beautiful to see. And he says, I can see what you're saying, but do you understand? His reasoning is that because it happened while Joe Biden's president, that Joe Biden gets credit. Need I remind you that Donald Trump campaigned on this? He threatened just the absolute destruction of Hamas, which Hamas should be destroyed anyways. I'm not big on foreign intervention. If Hamas disappeared tomorrow, no one would be sad about it. It would be a safer world, a better world. So I'm not saying go drop bombs on them willy-nilly, but if he did, I wouldn't complain either. These are horrible people. No one should care about them. But Don Lemon, just ignoring the fact that Trump campaigned on this, talk tough, world leaders understand who they're dealing with now. If they respected Joe Biden, and if Kamala Harris had won, none of this would be happening. But they don't respect Biden. They're holding out to see if Trump would lose. And then if Kamala Harris had won, they wouldn't be coming to a negotiation. It is pretty obvious. It is pretty obvious, folks. But Don Lemon can't admit that. Again, he is a shill. He is just ignorant, so ignorant on this. Doesn't care to do his homework. Doesn't care to think about it. He has a narrative to promote, and that is anti-Trump. I got to be honest, folks. Number one, Trump had to win to save this country. But number two, the hysteria coming from the left over the next 4 years is going to be monumental because Trump is going to make everyone's life better. It is going to be a more peaceful world, a safer world, a more affordable world. And they're going to have nothing to do except take the opposite approach. They will have to defend evil like they always do. Nothing new there. But they will have to defend evil, have to defend bad policies, just to sit on the opposite side of the fence of Donald Trump. It's going to be so glorious. And when he does great things, they're not going to be able to give him credit, or They're going to have to read like a hostage script. Donald Trump did something good today. It's going to be so great. Folks, I am so excited for the next 4 years. Yes, to live in a better country, a better world, but also just to watch these clowns every single day either defend evil or have to read the hostage script. But here we go. Here is CBS's Robert Costa. And he didn't watch the same speech as we did, because here is his takeaway.
At one level, it was deeply personal, Nora. You did see the photos of the family sitting behind President Biden, including his late son, Beau Biden.
Okay, so I got to stop this right here. They don't believe what they're saying, folks. If Donald Trump gives a speech and he has photographs of his family in the background, do you think they would be like, it was such a personal speech from Donald Trump? He had photographs of his family members, and they had a photograph of Melania's recently deceased mom. Such a personal touch. They wouldn't talk about that. They don't believe this. They don't care, folks. Don't listen to them. Stop believing them. Turn off the television. Go over to Rumble at the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. You know this doesn't matter, because if Donald Trump situated himself in the exact same way, they wouldn't give him credit for personal touches. You know this is a sham, because you know what I'm saying is true. When Joe Biden has the personal touches, they will find a way to convince themselves that it's meaningful. But if Donald Trump did it, they wouldn't angle their coverage the same way. That's how you know it's a lie. Let's keep going.
And earlier today, I was at the Capitol meeting with President Biden's close friends like Senator Chris Coons, and they expected him to advocate for his record. But what was most striking was what you mentioned, the echo of Dwight D. Eisenhower. January 17th, 1961, President Eisenhower, in his own farewell address, warned the nation of a so-called military-industrial complex. Now President Biden, as he departs the presidency, is warning of a, quote, tech-industrial complex. And this comes as Elon Musk, the billionaire, and others like Jeff Bezos are prepared to sit on that dais at the inaugural for President-elect Donald Trump.
And again, just to point out that they don't really care what they're saying, Donald Trump has been warning about the deep state for years. That's one of the main reasons we elected him in 2016 and certainly again in 2024, because we're tired of the deep state running the country. We're tired of the CIA owning all these politicians. We're tired of all the blackmail that takes place. We're tired of lobbyists paying off politicians. This is not new. We're quite well aware of it. And Donald Trump, when they called out the deep state, people are like, you're wearing tinfoil hat if you think the deep state runs a shadow government. And it's like, no, it does. This is factually true. Donald Trump is campaigning against it. They called him a nut job for saying that. And now suddenly Joe Biden gets credit for warning us of a new industrial complex. Get out of here with that. That's why Donald Trump won, because he's been talking about this the entire time. Government and big tech colluded in 2020 until Donald Trump's taken over to censor your right to speech, to control narratives. The CIA runs corporate media outlets. And this guy's on here saying Joe Biden gets credit for pointing out these threats. Donald Trump campaigned and won on pointing out these threats. Get out of here with all of that.
On January 20th. And you see President Biden, who began his career as Scranton Joe, as someone who was an advocate for working people, ending his presidency as someone underscoring his own progressive values, really sending a signal to the left in this country that he stood with them on their core economic issues.
All right. Folks, I am more mad about this clip than I think any other clip we've played today. I hate Robert Costa. Robert Costa is a evil human being who promotes evil. I know it's hyperbolic. It sounds cliche at this point to be like evil. They belong in jail. I know no other words to describe them. This is 100% a pure lie. And I would ask this question. How has Joe Biden benefited the working people in 50 years in public service, quote, public service? Are working class Americans better off with tens of millions of illegals undermining their salaries, their wages, stealing their jobs from them? Are working class Americans better off as they watch rich doctors get their loans forgiven, and then the working class people are paying the taxes, which then go into the student loan forgiveness plan, racking on more and more debt for working class families and their children and grandchildren? Joe Biden's presidency, and I've said this a lot too, yes, he hated half this country. He hates MAGA. He called us domestic terrorists. He has thrown Trump supporters in prison. His entire administration, they have been rotting in DC jails. But it's more than that. He hates all Americans, because you can't point to a single policy enacted by Joe Biden that's benefited any American. And I'm not talking about if you're a student and you try to get your loans forgiven, or you're part of the LGBT community and he promoted equity in his administration. I'm not talking about that. I am talking about all America, all Americans. Not a single one of us has benefited from Joe Biden's economic, foreign policy, open borders, none of it. We have not benefited any bit from Joe Biden's policies, whether you voted for him or not. He hates you. But again, they're trying to do this emotional blackmail where he's just a poor kid with a stutter from Scranton. And yes, Joe Biden's White House released a statement saying, I can't believe a kid with a stutter in Scranton made his way to the White House. Like, this is all a lie. And again, they would never say this. They would never message this about Donald Trump. And sure, Donald Trump was born into wealth, inherited a lot of wealth, but he has built an empire. He built an empire far greater than what he inherited. What has Joe Biden built other than a large bank account thanks to his corruption? Robert Costa, I can't believe, and I say that because I can believe it. These people are just, they're stupid. They are ignorant. They are shills. They are brainwashed. They are evil. Going back to the word evil. Someone actually, his entire monologue, every single thing he said was wrong. And he said it so confidently. And he said it without really hesitation. He just went on. He's like, Joe Biden this, Joe Biden that. Everything's great about Joe Biden. This is what people are hearing. This is how people are voting. It is scary out there, folks. Yes, Donald Trump won. Kamala Harris got 48% of the vote. People like Robert Costa exist and spread these just outrageous lies. They are rewriting history. They are gaslighting you. What an incredible clip. That is how the media was covering it. And again, all you got to do is pretend Donald Trump gives the exact same speech, exact same setup, and they don't talk about it that way. So you know it has nothing to do with Biden. It has only to do with protecting the establishment and the regime. All right, we got one more clip because honestly, as bad as that one, I think this one might be worse.
Some ways this builds on the message, the themes that we've always heard from him, that he is fighting for the soul of this nation. In other ways, this is really taking this argument to a whole other level, taking a shot clearly at Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg, who've surrounded.
And again, here's the media narrative. We ignore George Soros. We ignore J.B. Pritzker. We ignore Mark Cuban. We ignore Oprah Winfrey. We ignore Jay-Z and Beyonce. Plenty of billionaires. Reid Hoffman, who's going to have to flee the country because of his connections with Epstein. Oh, yeah, Jeffrey Epstein. They don't mind billionaires. They love billionaires. What they hate, and you could be a billionaire like Elon Musk, or a poor working class American that's rotting in a DC jail cell right now because you looked at the Capitol building the wrong way. They hate you. They don't care that they're billionaires. They just hate anybody that is not 100% drinking the Kool-Aid and supporting the regime. That's all this is. Don't let them boogeyman Bezos, Musk, Zuckerberg. What they're afraid of is losing control of their absolute grip on tyrannical communication control. That's it. That's all this is. But they're making their boogeymans Musk, Zuckerberg, Trump. You should hate billionaires. Well, hold on a second. I can think of a lot of billionaires that campaign for Kamala Harris and fund DAs around the country. Were involved with Epstein and blackmailing our politicians. I can think of a lot of those billionaires. So maybe it's not just being a billionaire that you have a problem with.
Surrounded themselves around President-elect Donald Trump, saying social media has given up on fact-checking, a clear reference to the fact that Mark Zuckerberg of Meta has said that it will no longer fact-check the dangers he warned that are potentially embedded in that.
To be clear, the things that got fact-checked are real. Do this right now, folks, or do this when the show is done. Don't leave my show yet. Go over to YouTube and watch a video on the Kennedy assassination or the Titanic sinking. I watched the Titanic video because why not one day? Abortion, COVID, climate change. Go over to YouTube. Every time you see that little Wikipedia link down there, you know they're covering up a lie. I think moon landing is in there. I don't know if flat Earth is on there yet. And again, I'm not endorsing all of that, but I'm open-minded to it. That's what fact-checking means to them. It means protecting the regime's narrative. When they're panicking, hyperventilating over the fact that Facebook got rid of fact-checkers, all Zuckerberg did was get rid of regime-approved people to squash narratives that competed with the government. Remember COVID? Let's just go back to COVID. It's the easiest example. Post something on ivermectin, on hydroxychloroquine, on how stupid masking was, on how social distancing was arbitrary and useless, how locking down schools and sending your kids home so they could Zoom into class. You weren't allowed to point out all these obvious flaws, these evil flaws from the regime, but now they're panicked over that because they don't have control over the narrative. They hate free speech. They hate you. They hate not having control. That's all this amounts to. I'm going to say this until I'm blue in the face. Folks, I am worked up over this. Like, it is incredible to me. I just can't get over the fact that this is where they're going. Once you see that the media is corrupt, once you understand they lie to you, and then you watch these clips, you're just like, my God. There are people out there, my friends, my family members, my neighbors that would listen to Kristen Welker. They would listen to Robert Costa, that tune into Don Lemon for whatever reason. And they are actually shaking their heads like, yeah, I am worried about this. I'm worried about. It's scary out there, folks. It is scary what people are willing to believe.
type of a move, with, of course, without mentioning any of these people by name. I think this was a speech for the history books. Lester, this is a president delivering his final farewell address to the American people. Yes, defending his legacy, but also with this very firm warning. It harkens back to what we heard from former President Obama in his farewell address when he talked about the fragility of the American democracy before then President-elect Trump was set to take office.
I can't, folks. I just can't. You know who had a great farewell address? Donald Trump. Take a listen to that. That was after even the J6 narrative, the Fedsurrection that took place. When Donald Trump left office, he had one of the greatest speeches I've ever heard. Donald Trump doesn't get nearly enough credit. You could listen to any State of the Union, any farewell address, inauguration address. They are beautiful messages. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, just a continuation of the Obama presidency, their policies actively harmed Americans. They gutted the Constitution. They despise you. They hate you. They don't care about your freedoms. They don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about this country. They wouldn't be a communist if they love this country. You can't love this country and be a communist. It doesn't work like that. But again, the way Welker is just waxing on about the wonderful historic speech given by Joe Biden, like, folks, there's more to this clip. I can't play it. It is so insane. Again, I expect the media to lie. I expect politicians to lie. I am so disheartened that regular people are watching this. You can't even have a conversation with half the people in this country anymore because they believe this. They think that what she's saying is true. Okay, I think that's enough of what the left is saying. You get the point. It's wild. But here's Scott Jennings covering that. We got Jesse Waters covering that as well. And then, folks, this has been a fast hour. I feel like I'm talking fast. I feel like we've had a lot of clips today. So much ground to cover today. So much ground. But here's Scott Jennings now destroying Joe Biden's speech.
I think the way he's leaving office has been, frankly, pretty terrible. He's going to be remembered for a few things. But politically, it's mostly for when he was vice president, he and Obama sort of ushering in the Trump era initially. And then as he's leaving office as president, bringing back Trump and Trumpism stronger and more popular than ever. Today, Biden has like a 61% disapproval, and Trump is over a 50% approval and more popular, and his ideology is more popular than it's ever been. If everything you say is true, the Democrats should have had no trouble getting reelected in this election, yet they were.
It's an issue of a communications failure.
I know, and for Democrats, it's always been about communication and no introspection about the policies that led to him leaving office as one of the most unpopular presidents. When I watch this tonight, I remain astonished that he, his family, and other people around him thought he could ever run for another term. I mean, there's no way he could serve another 6 months, let alone another 4 years. The fact that they pursued that farce for as long as they did, to me, remains one of the most astonishing things about this term. So,
yeah, astonishing things. How about just one of the most massive scandals we've ever seen? We had Facebook pages demonetized, unpublished, because we spoke out about Joe Biden's senility. And then after the debate, after the coup, then suddenly you were allowed to talk about it. But the moment in there, too, I don't know that gal's name. She's meaningless. I mean, I don't want to make fun of her haircut, but I will a little bit. Why do you dress like that? But she said it's about communication. It's about messaging. This is what Democrats do. And to Scott Jennings' point about introspection, I've made this point. This is where Jennings is wrong. It's not about introspection. It's not about learning. They can't change. This is their religious outlook on life, big government, climate change, COVID, foreign wars, open borders, abortion, transgenderism. It's all a religious worldview. So they can't introspect. They can't learn. But she's like, it's just about a messaging problem. And this is what Democrats do. They think we just need to lie harder. We just need to message our evil, horrible policies better. We're not going to change our evil, horrible policies. We're just going to message and communicate better. All she's saying is we have to lie more to the American people. Again, folks, if you're optimistic about the future like I am, they're not going to change. They can't change. And they're just, when they message and communicate differently, it just doesn't work anymore, at least for the majority of the country. Again, people believe it. How are you going to message abortion differently? How are you going to message foreign wars differently? Open borders, you're going to try to defend that one and defend the murder and rape of American citizens, the job theft that takes place here. You're going to defend America last. Like, yeah, good luck messaging on that. But that's what they do. We just need to package up these horrible, evil policies differently and delude the American people harder. Absolutely wild stuff. All right, we got one more clip, folks. One more clip. Let me find Jesse Waters, and here we go.
Anna, are we looking at a failed presidency? That this is a one-term guy? This is complete repudiation by the American people. 33% approval rating. Many people see this as a failure.
So you and I sit together every day on the 5, and you know that I try to be really nice. And I intended to find something that I could say, wow, that was great. So news of the day at the top, understandable. Big soaring attempt at a rhetorical push for unity. I'm like, okay, I'm following. And then, like, what in the world was he talking about? For example, when he talks about dark money, does he not remember that just last week he gave the Medal of Honor, or Medal of Freedom Award to George Soros? He talked about the fact that they had the biggest economic rebound than ever. He never mentioned COVID, which was the entire premise of his presidency. Today, I looked at a poll. Britt mentioned our poll. There was another poll, the Gallup poll. They asked about 18 issues. Which ones are you feeling better about? Only 1 out of 18 did people feel better about, and it was gay, lesbians, and trans issues. So he's sitting there talking about all of these things that he's done, and I'm just like, this rings hollow. To me, it felt like the speechwriters have already left the building and that they asked ChatGPT to write a speech for Joe Biden in which he doesn't remember that he was president for the last 4 years. If you ask people, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? The answer is no, except for maybe the solar companies and the Delta smelt.
The Delta smelt. Glad you got them there. But there it is, folks. Again, perfect summation of the entire episode today of all the clips we played. It's all a lie. It's all gaslighting. It's all hoaxes. It's all rewriting history. That's all they have. But again, to the point about the previous video, it's all about messaging. They're going to message this in a way that makes you think, oh, that does sound nice. Yeah, things are on the upswing here. Peace deal, record low immigration problems since he came into office. Like, they're going to lie to you differently. They're going to fine-tune their lies. That's all they can do, because at the end of the day, their policies are ruinous. They are harmful. They are destructive, and they are deadly. And with that, folks, we are going to wrap things up here. A fast hour on the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. I appreciate you tuning in today. The next time you see me, 9:30 a.m. Central, Tuesday morning of next week, Donald Trump will have been sworn in as president, and we embark on some of the greatest 4 years in this country's recent history. I have never been more optimistic about a president getting into the White House. No, I don't expect my entire wish list to come to fruition over the next 4 years. But you think back to all the Republicans we had: Mitt Romney, John McCain, George Bush, Bob Dole, Bush Sr., Ronald Reagan. They will pale in comparison to what Donald Trump is about to do. For the first time ever, an actual populist conservative president putting America first, not the swamp, not the lobbyists. I cannot wait for the next 4 years. Good riddance to Joe Biden. Horrible politician, even worse human being, an absolute disgrace. Joe Biden is on his way out. Donald Trump is on his way in. And folks, there's so much to look forward to. But we'll be back next Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Central. Again, we are the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson. We go live every Tuesday and Thursday, 9:30 a.m. Central, over on Rumble, the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson channel, over on X at Todd Amtrib. And then hopefully we get back to Facebook. I think we'll clean things up a little next Tuesday, get a larger Facebook audience back. That's where the comments come from. That's where the viewership comes from. We were going after Biden today. Again, I don't know what I can say about Joe Biden over on Facebook. How dare I call out his historic speech and his wonderful legacy. But we'll play clips from the inauguration. We'll talk all about that. Again, next Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. Central at the American Tribune Live with Todd Peterson over on Rumble. Folks, catch you then. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Donald Trump sworn in as president next Monday, January 20th. Buckle up.
Starting on day one, we'll implement a rapid series of bold reforms to restore our nation to full prosperity. We're going to go full prosperity and to build the greatest economy the world has ever seen, just as we had just a short time ago. We will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America healthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Great again. Great again.